Welcome back, focused learners. Okay, let's dive right into this. Today's explainer is on an absolute mission to completely dismantle a myth that has, quite frankly, hung around in medicine for centuries. The idea that your mind and your body are somehow these two separate systems. I mean, it's just not true. By leaning into hard neurobiological science and treating the entire human body as one integrated scientific corpus, which it absolutely is, we're going to look at the exact mechanisms connecting your deepest thoughts to your physical health. We're talking everything from how you optimize your deep sleep and lymphatic clearance, right down to how you regulate your daily stress. Can a thought change your DNA? It sounds totally like science fiction, doesn't it? But to answer this really profound question, we're going to take a cinematic journey straight through your biology. We'll start way up at the macroscopic level, looking at those massive nerve highways trafficking information between your brain and your organs. We'll explore how foundational recovery states, like sleep, literally dictate these signals. And then we're going to travel all the way down into the microscopic reality of cellular aging and epigenetic tags. So get ready, because what we're about to uncover, it's going to fundamentally change how you view your own biology. So everything begins with your autonomic nervous system. Think of this as the master control room for every single bodily function you don't have to consciously think about. And yeah, that includes how you transition into sleep. It's basically got two branches that are in this constant real-time negotiation. The sympathetic branch, that's your gas pedal. It pumps out cortisol and adrenaline, revs up your heart rate, and gets you ready for action. You know, the classic fight or flight response. Then you have the parasympathetic branch, which is your brake. It controls rest, digestion, and those crucial deep sleep functions. It pulls your heart rate down and allows for essential cellular recovery. Ultimately, your physiological state at any given moment is dictated by whichever branch is winning this invisible tug of war. To actually measure who's winning that tug of war, we look at heart rate variability, or HRV. But here's the thing. HRV isn't just about the heart. It is entirely about the brain. The physical bridge connecting the two is the vagus nerve. Now, a lot of folks think the brain just sort of barks orders down to the body, but actually, a staggering 80% of vagal nerve fibers are afferent. That means they're carrying information from the body back up to the brain. It's a two-way street, a bidirectional highway. The exact timing of your heartbeats directly influences the timing of neural oscillations up in your brain. This establishes your interoception, which is literally your brain's ability to intuitively sense your body's internal state. Now, what's really interesting about this is the direct coupling of your heart rhythms to your brain waves. When you're stressed out and your vagal tone is weak, your HRV drops. This locks your brain into high beta waves, which is the neural signature of cognitive rumination, anxiety, and frankly, terrible sleep architecture. Conversely, a high HRV promotes those beautiful restorative alpha waves, paving the way for deep sleep. So how do we shift gears? By taking conscious control of the brake. Pace diaphragmatic breathing at exactly 6 breaths per minute, so think a 4-second inhale and a 6-second exhale, triggers this natural, highly beneficial phenomenon called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. Don't worry, it's not a disease. It simply mechanically synchronizes your heart rate with your breath, strengthening that vagal brake and instantly firing calming signals right back to your prefrontal cortex. Section 1. The gut-brain immune axis. Let's follow that vagus nerve down past the heart, straight into the gastrointestinal tract. We're entering this incredibly integrated, bidirectional feedback loop, where digestion, immunity, and psychology all just collide. I mean, consider this staggering number. There are between 100 and 500 million neurons hanging out right now in your enteric nervous system. That's the nervous system of your gut. To put that into perspective, your gut has more processing power, more neurons, than the entire brain of a cat or a dog. It's not just passively digesting your lunch. It functions with incredible autonomy. It's constantly gathering environmental data and sending updates back up to your brain, influencing everything from your daily mood to the quality of your sleep. So the crucial point is how this communication actually happens, and it all comes down to the microbiome. First off, colonic bacteria ferment fiber to secrete short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which drastically reduce systemic inflammation. Second, specific bacterial strains literally, physically stimulate those vagal sensory endings to modulate your mood. And third, this is wild, bacteria like Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus actually manufacture neurotransmitters like GABA. That's the brain's primary calming chemical that helps initiate sleep. So your microbiome is actively secreting postbiotics, those helpful byproducts of digestion, and neurotransmitters that directly dictate your emotional resilience. It's literally brewing your mood.
And this brilliantly illustrates the darker side of that connection. What actually happens when you experience chronic psychological stress, or maybe severe sleep deprivation? It cascades from just a fleeting feeling into systemic physical damage. Here's the chain. Stress activates the HPA axis, flooding your system with cortisol. This chronic cortisol alters your microbiota and actually increases gut permeability. You might know it as a leaky gut. Endotoxins then leak through that compromised intestinal barrier straight into your bloodstream, which triggers a massive cytokine release. Your immune system attacks, leading directly to neuroinflammation in the brain's prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. Basically, a thought literally becomes a systemic biological crisis.
Section 2. Rewiring the brain's hardware.
But here is exactly where we reclaim our agency. Let's look at how this builds. If chronic stress and poor sleep degrade our neural hardware, how do evidence-based mind-body practices physically alter and repair it? Well, when we look at MRI scans of individuals who maintain long-term meditation and yoga practices, the structural changes are honestly breathtaking. The right amygdala, that's the brain's fear and stress center, literally shrinks in volume. Meanwhile, the hippocampus, which is critical for memory and emotion regulation, grows denser with increased gray matter. And the prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive function and attention, it physically thickens. You're not just relaxing, you are quite literally reshaping the physical architecture of your brain.
And we aren't just talking about a handful of isolated scans here. This is backed by massive population-based data. Take the Rotterdam study, which examined over 3,700 participants. They found that engaging in meditation and yoga was associated with a highly significant 31.8 cubic millimeter reduction in right amygdala volume. This provides unshakable intellectual credibility to the fact that you can physically downsize the fear center of your brain through dedicated practice. And doing so, it paves the exact neural pathway needed for deeper, restorative sleep and much better stress regulation.
Functional MRIs add another totally fascinating layer to this puzzle. When practitioners are exposed to negative or painful stimuli, their scans show something remarkable. They exhibit increased gray matter in the insular cortex, which gives them a significantly higher threshold for pain. But crucially, they show less activation in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex when viewing negative images. So, what does this actually mean? It proves they still notice the negative stimuli. They aren't just numb to the world, but their newly rewired neural networks prevent the stressor from hijacking their working memory and completely derailing their emotional state. It's resilience, hardwired.
Section 3. Epigenetics and cellular aging.
Now, we're going to transition to the ultimate biological frontier. We're zooming all the way in, from macroscopic brain anatomy and gut microbiomes down to the tiny, microscopic strands of DNA inside your cells. Inside almost every cell in your body are chromosomes, and at the ends of these chromosomes are protective caps called telomeres. Think of them like those little plastic tips at the ends of your shoelaces that keep them from fraying. Cellular aging is largely driven by telomere attrition. Basically, every time a cell divides, those telomeres get a little bit shorter. Chronic cortisol, sleep deprivation, and oxidative stress, they dramatically accelerate this shortening. But, and this is absolutely vital, your body has an enzyme called telomerase. And telomerase can actually rebuild and lengthen those telomeres, literally repairing the cellular damage.
Which brings us to this incredible data point from the UC Davis Shamatha project. After a 3-month intensive meditation retreat, researchers measured the telomerase activity in the white blood cells of the participants. The result? A massive 33% increase in telomerase activity compared to the control group. Just think about that. The pure practice of focusing the mind literally upregulated the specific biological enzyme responsible for repairing cellular aging. No way, right? But the science shows it's absolutely true.
To really reinforce this, let's look at the AgeWell randomized controlled trial. Over 18 months, older adults who practice meditation significantly slowed the decrease of their 50th percentile telomere length. And the most compelling part of this whole trial? The benefit directly correlated with class attendance time. It is a strict dose-dependent relationship. The more time you spend regulating your nervous system, the more effectively you preserve your cellular youth. It's a direct, measurable investment in your biological longevity.
Finally, a landmark study from UW-Madison proves that mindfulness actually alters gene expression. The practice actively downregulates pro-inflammatory genes like RIPK2 and COX2. But even more incredibly, it downregulates HDAC genes. These are the enzymes responsible for locking in inflammatory epigenetic tags. By effectively wiping the slate clean of these tags, practitioners were able to achieve significantly faster cortisol recovery after being subjected to intense social stress. So you are literally turning down the volume on the exact genes that cause systemic inflammation.
We've traveled a long way today, from the macroscopic breath and foundational sleep architecture down the vagus nerve, through the wild world of the gut microbiome, into the physical structure of your brain, and finally, right into the protective caps of your DNM. The science is definitive. The mind-body continuum is a single, unified biological framework. So I leave you with this question to ponder. Knowing that every single breath, every thought, and every moment of stress directly influences your cellular aging and genetic expression. Are your daily habits merely routines, or are they, in fact, your epigenetic programming? Really think about that the next time you sit down to breathe or prepare for sleep. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.